I've been talking a lot about Ficsmas over the last couple of weeks. However, in my last video I asked the question, is Ficsmas worth it? On one hand, of course it is. It's basically a free DLC every year where you get to feel the festivities of Christmas inside of Satisfactory, whilst also being able to craft some new and exciting items. But on the other hand, it consumes unnecessary resources. So today we'll be diving into both sides of the debate to truly answer the question, is Ficsmas worth it? Obviously, it goes without saying that everyone should be able to form their own opinions. If you want to do Ficsmas, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it, and I'll talk a bit more about that towards the end of today's video. But let's start off with the positives, and why I think Ficsmas might be worth it for you. Starting off with being able to craft new items. One of the best things about Ficsmas is the pretty big range of new items that you can craft throughout December and early January. This includes things like blue ornaments, red ornaments, iron, copper ornaments as well, tree branches, which is really cool, candy canes, bows, snow. Like, there is a pretty wide range of stuff here. Luckily, it's not too complicated. If you'd like to know how to actually complete Ficsmas, then I recommend watching my video that I released just a few days ago, and it really does show you how easy this event actually is. If you're new to Satisfactory, maybe the last thing that you want to do is to be able to craft a bunch of new items. But if you've been playing this game for ages, or if you've already finished 1.0, then this is also really fun, because again, you have to craft a bunch of new things that you just couldn't automate before. And of course, again, it's new items. I'm never gonna say no to new items. Second point, which I believe makes Ficsmas worth it, is that it's a bit of a distraction from the base game. Personally, I've spent the last few weeks designing a fueled factory that uses rocket fuel, and it definitely drains you out, especially when you're using trains, drones, and having to deal with liquids, which in Satisfactory is never easy. So being able to put that project on hold just for a little bit and create something a bit new, a bit festive, is actually really fun and really refreshing. I haven't had to deal with a solid item in Satisfactory for about 4, maybe even 5 weeks now. So the fact that I can finally do something that doesn't involve liquids and water and fuel and crude oil is such a fantastic, liberating feeling. In fact, I was live streaming the game a couple days ago, and it got to the stage where I kind of just realized I am playing Satisfactory, but I'm not really doing anything Satisfactory related. It's like I'm doing a side quest or a DLC, and you'll hear me refer to that quite a lot. It generally does feel like a DLC every year, which again, it offers a fantastic distraction from the game. The third point that I'll very quickly touch on is you get to feel the festive spirit. I'm gonna sound like the Grinch when I say this, but I'm not a very big fan of snow in real life. But seeing it in a video game setting, I actually don't mind it. And Satisfactory is no exception. Not to mention that beautiful northern light sky that they've added in this recent 1.0 update. It is absolutely beautiful, especially when you are in more of a grassier biome or a forestry biome, and just seeing the snowfall and the lights, it's generally a really cool feeling. And normally, again, if you've been watching my streams for a while, you'll know that I don't like Satisfactory during the night. In fact, I don't like most games during the night, because I struggle to see what I'm actually doing. However, because of the new northern lights that they've added, you really just feel more immersed into the game, and I actually quite like it now. In fact, sometimes I'm almost waiting for it to be night, just so I can get a glimpse of that beautiful night sky. You have done a fantastic job with feeling that festive spirit in the game, without it being too overpowering. It's a really good balance, and it's something I'm definitely here for. Just very quickly, if you enjoy videos like this and you want more guides, tips and tricks, then feel free to subscribe if you wish. You don't have to, but it's a good way to support the channel. You'll also get notified whenever I drop one of these videos. Thank you for all the continued support on the channel, but without further ado, let's get straight back into the video. An additional reason as to why I think Ficsmas is worth it is because of the new decorations. They add quite a decent amount of decorations in Ficsmas every year, and one of my favourite decorations is those lights. The problem that a lot of us have with our factories is that we have cables going absolutely everywhere, and it doesn't look very nice. Of course, you could just hide it underneath the ground, like most people do, or you can now just add these really festive Ficsmas lights, which I think look absolutely incredible and I absolutely adore. Not to mention, you can also add a bunch of trees as well. This is the only item of vegetation or foliage that we get to add in our world, which I kind of wish we were able to place down more trees, plants, bushes, rocks, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. So again, this is the closest we're ever going to come to be able to placing down trees or bushes around our bases, and it really does add a level of vegetation or just greenery into a factory that sometimes feels a bit dark or a bit grey, a bit miserable. So again, I really do like that. And that's not even beginning to mention things like the snowmen, or the wraiths, or even the snow dispensers, which all look really cool respectively. And the final reason as to why I think Ficsmas is generally worth it is that it leaves a visible reminder of the event, and it can be a good visual reminder of the festive season. Some people might like having it there, but other people might not. It might get to the stage where it's June or July, where the last thing you kind of want is a Christmas or snowy themed area in your factory. Unless of course you live in the southern hemisphere, which it's probably going to be snowing around that time anyway. So those are my reasons why I think Ficsmas is worth it. However, I've also got a couple reasons why I think it's not worth it, and these are genuine issues that I see a lot of people talking about, so I think it's rather important to bring up in today's video. First of all, power consumption. Like I previously touched upon, I have made a video where I discuss how to technically finish the Ficsmas event, and in that video we have to use machines such as smelters, foundries, constructors, and assemblers. To begin with, having a couple smelters and foundries doesn't really consume much power, but this all starts to add up. If you're towards the early stage of the game, the last thing you want to be doing is wasting power on something which isn't really that important. Like, if you finish Ficsmas, as far as I'm aware, you don't get anything interesting. I do still recommend putting all of your focus in those space elevator parts. However, like I mentioned previously, this is also a good distraction from those space elevator parts if you are finding them a bit overwhelming. Overall, the heavy power consumption toll is a reason why a lot of people don't want to commit to Ficsmas, and that is understandable. Another point which is, again, fairly understandable, is that Ficsmas, at least if you want to try and complete it, requires iron and copper, which is a bit of a shame, especially, again, early game, or if you're in a biome that might not have a lot of iron and copper lying around. This is obviously a pretty big negative point, but on the good side is that it doesn't actually consume a lot of iron and copper. You will have to use some, but not a lot. There are plenty of points all around the Satisfactory world that have iron and copper right next to each other, so it's not like you have to belt in copper from 500 meters away. Luckily, you can just place it right next to each other if you so wish. Unfortunately, it doesn't use limestone or bauxite or coal, it literally just uses iron and copper. And I suppose if you really wanted to, and if you have got phase 5 of the space elevator unlocked, or tier 9 of the hub, you can actually use the converter, where you can make copper or iron from other resources if you're in a really desperate situation to do so, but I don't particularly recommend doing that, unless you have to. So apart from the fact that Ficsmas does often consume quite a bit of power, and you also have to use iron and copper, it also takes quite a lot of time to do, and that is our third point, time consumption. You could be using this time to do way more important things in the game, such as, again, getting your power sorted, maybe unlocking a new phase in your space elevator or a new tier in your hub. There is a lot to do in Satisfactory. So is it really worth spending hours on an event where you, again, don't really get much for doing it? Well, that is completely up to you. And overall, I do think those are some very valid reasons as to why you shouldn't, or perhaps should, do the Ficsmas event. And like I mentioned in the introduction, you should do whatever you feel like doing. If you want to try Ficsmas, give it a shot. If you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. Again, it's completely free. It's not like you have to pay any money to do it. You just do it. I do think that this is a net positive overall though, because again, it's just good fun to do, it gets you into that festive spirit, and there are people out there that have finished update 1.0 within the first week of it coming out, and there's other people like myself who are still miles off, but are taking their time and enjoying it one step at a time. And I do honestly think Ficsmas is there for everyone, whether you have already finished 1.0, or if you've barely started. I think it's good fun. The one thing to keep an eye out for though is again that power consumption early on, because you are going to need things like assemblers, constructors, foundries, and smelters, where obviously if you haven't got foundries or assemblers unlocked yet, then, well, you can't do the event. But luckily, you don't need anything silly like a manufacturer or a blender or a refinery, so you can still do this relatively early game as long as you have those machines unlocked. In my personal opinion, yes, I think Ficsmas is worth it. It's a fun event and I wait for it every year, so I'm very happy that we finally get to play it over the next few weeks. Regardless, like I've mentioned a few times now, please do formulate your own opinions. Don't just listen to some bloke on the internet, especially when he's got the name Valhard and Pickle. And that will just about do it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Before we go, a massive shout out to the Knights of the Realm channel members. We have Asuna Yuki, Variance, Natormal, Yamikel Burns, Hios Rising, Scotland Hattie, and Mau Mau. If you decide to become a Knight of the Realm for just £2.99 a month, you get access to channel-only emotes, unique badges, and also shoutouts in videos. Memberships are the best way to support my channel, but you don't have to become a member. Even just by watching today's video, you are supporting the channel massively. Here's a couple more videos I've made that you might be interested in. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Have an amazing rest of your day, and remember, Godspeed.